Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Alternative Cycling Network, where we give you unsponsored, unfiltered hot takes on industry drops, industry news, all that good stuff. My name is Russ. I'm one of your three co-hosts. We've got Eric Spinney from Spindat, Michael from Locked In, and together we form like a three-limbed Voltron of bikes. Right. Today we've got again, as one would suspect, the industry released something new today just so we could talk about in the show. We're going to talk about SRAM's new Eagle expansion. I keep forgetting if it's expansion or extension, but the expansion. And then we're going to talk about some of our best and worst bike hacks that we've each personally done, and also touch a little bit about COVID and cycling, which I think is a little bit pertinent. But before we do all that, let's do some channel updates. Eric, let's start with you. What's been going on your channel?
I've mostly been trying to finish the retro build, which I'm pretty well done now, and it's riding season, so much more riding outdoors. We in Nova Scotia, speaking of the COVID thing, a lot of it's kind of been relaxed lately. So like the regular faces that you would see on the channel before, like Colin, Brent, just all my friends who do make appearances will be able to join in again. And yeah, it's going to be a good summer finally. Like,
yeah, it's awesome. Finally able to ride with other people, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Mike? What's going on your channel?
I just posted a review for the WTB Venture tire in the 700 form. I had their 700 by 50C, which is like the biggest tire I've ever run, on my Cobalt Warhawk. So that just posted. I am working on my review of the Redshift suspension shock seat post. That is going to be what's going to be up next on the channel. And I've actually let some friends borrow it. That they call it the grandpa or the dad setup. And then we went and did a loop the other day, like one of the local trails. And one buddy who's like, he used to race cyclocross, so he's like, he's younger than me, way more fit. He's like, dude, this is great. And then our other friend he's like, oh, how's the dad set up, man? And then he saw it. And then halfway through the ride, he's like, you know what? It's looking pretty nice right now. Like, yeah, the trail was pretty blown out and really rocky and like way more ruddy than usual and way rougher than like when we've ridden it 100 times before. And he's like, dude, I get it now. Like, so that was fun. So that's going to be my next, the video that I'm working on right now.
Cool. Dad bikes. I think they're going to be the next hot thing.
That's it. I call it, full Cadillac. I call it Cadillac mode, but everybody else calls it like grandpa spec or dad bike or whatever, so yeah.
Like 90s hybrids had all these posts, man.
The 90s are back in full force. Let's see. On Pathless Pedaled, I did a video, kind of tongue-in-cheek, a cyclist guide on how not to dress like a cyclist. So giving people alternatives if they don't want to ride in full kit, how to blend some of those technical advantages of having like a chamois and a bib and all that stuff, but also mixing it with casual clothing. And there's a hashtag, if you look on the grams, it is gravel casual. Next big thing.
Oh yeah.
Grab
cash. Okay, so before we go into today's topic, though, there was a lot of discussion about a particular phrase that I use in videos. Do you remember, Eric? You were particularly disturbed.
Yeah, it bothers me. Angela and I went for a walk before we came here, and I was like, do you see rocks this size? Russ says something that bothers me a lot. And she's just like, why does he say that? And I'm like, I don't know, it's weird. And I need to fix it.
So apparently, one of our astute viewers told me in the comments that there's. Do you know what the Dutch word is for cobblestone?
If it's baby head, I'll be really mad.
It's kinderkoppen, which translates to children's heads. So I think this is much worse, in my opinion. So there you go.
But that would be bigger pieces, wouldn't it? Like that would be like some like large, like.
No.
So that might make a good sticker though. Kinderkoppen. I think of kindergarten cop.
I refuse to put it on anything.
Oh my god.
Okay, so let's move on to the well, before we go into that, we talked about the state bicycle last week, $700, the $700 4130 gravel adventure bike, all sold out.
They're gone, yeah. Aren't they 800?
I mean,
$800, aren't they?
For $800? Yeah, right.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, I think it's under that, and then if you get the 2 wheel sets, I want to say it was like 1050, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But that's wild. That's crazy that we could make a video about that and it sell out so quick.
Totally because of the video.
Right.
Nothing to do with COVID and like a general bike shortage whatsoever.
That was through our affiliate link that we have now, right? Is that how it works?
Right. Okay. So the big new drop this morning was the SRAM expansion. And if you guys haven't seen it, I will bring it up on the screen here. Let's move it over here. And the big news is it's kind of a reimagining, or not reimagining, but expansion of the GX drivetrain. So instead of, I'm going to pop up. Hi, guys. Instead of just a 50 tooth, the big cog on the rear cassette is now a whopping 10 to 52, which is pretty wild. I mean, that's literally the size of like a road front chainring now.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's one bigger than Shimano's. Or sorry, Eric, it's Shimano. How do you say it? Shimano.
No, I don't say it weird at all.
So pretty interesting. If you want to run this, a couple of technical things is that you do have to use the XD driver. So if you're a Luddite like me and you don't want to ever leave like Shimano HG, it's a thing. The cassette seems pretty light for its range. It's like 425 grams. Yeah. That's pretty good. They did have to, I think the official statement is that you probably shouldn't use an older pre-existing GX derailleur, that it might clear it, but they don't suggest it. So you have to buy for best performance the new GX rear derailleur, which has slightly different geometry. I think a longer parallelogram.
Right, and then different placement for the top pulley.
Okay,
and Pink Bike, they said that they tried it on an old GX derailleur, said that it could physically get there, but it didn't. It wasn't like great, and they didn't recommend. They even said that it doesn't shift like anywhere near as good as. So they recommend the same thing. The cool part is it works with the old shifter, so like you could just get the derailleur and the cassette. If you already have it, but yeah.
Here's an argument. Maybe don't.
Right.
Don't get any of it, because spending that much money on something for 2 extra teeth is ludicrous. I have no idea why you would do that.
It is. So let's talk about the cost. So the new cassette is $215, and the new derailleur to go along with it is $125.
Right.
So compare that to something like the Advent X. I mean, granted, it's not it's 10 speed. It doesn't nearly have nearly as much range, but you can get the complete group set for $164. Right. Minus the cranks.
And consider that a 10-speed chain, if you look at it the wrong way once, it doesn't necessarily need to be replaced. Where a 12-speed chain, after you've bought it and took it out of the package, you're ready for a new one.
Yeah, I haven't had much experience with 12-speed. Is it, what do you guys think? Have you guys ridden many 12-speed bikes?
It's paper thin chain plates, and I broke one. Like I broke one in a video like a week and a half ago, and I was like, "Cool, right on, broken chain."
Yeah, I used to run the E13 946 cassette on my 11-speed setup, but a lot of people, a big thing was run a 12-speed chain because for the 9, and the last couple teeth, like teeth that are smaller, it did shift a little better. And I ran just a GX Eagle chain, and yeah, I probably got 700 or 800 miles out of it. Easy before I want to. I mean, I'm rough guessing where I get easy over 1,000 on an 11-speed compared.
Right.
Granted, one by and chain wrap and size of your front chain ring and all that kind of technical jargon is going to wear it out naturally faster. It was a little quieter and had a in general to where I didn't mind it, and the GX chains are cheap. They're like $30.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a big deal because if you think about it, like a decent 11-speed chain and a GX 12-speed, it's a wash. But I've ridden 12-speed Eagle GX. I borrowed a demo bike for a bit that was a giant full suspension cross-country Anthem killer bike. Love the drivetrain, shifted great. I think for the everyman, like the GX series of stuff is killer. And they came out with a carbon GX crankset.
Yeah, that's
as well.
So does it go right from GX up to like X01 or whatever? Like I don't know. I don't even know the hierarchy.
It's SX, NX, GX, and then it's X01,
and then, like right into
XO.
the nicer, yeah.
Well, yeah. So the only real difference is going to be that GX was all alloy. Now they have a carbon crankset option. But I mean, if I've made a video talking about this, like I think if you look at most group sets, the biggest weight savings, if you're looking at it, is going to be your crankset and your cassette.
Yeah, I agree.
And even with SRAM road stuff, like I looked at force shifter and rear derailleur versus Apex, and it was like 50 grams difference. All of the weights literally in the crank. So if you do like a force crankset and Apex shifters and rear derailleur and like a decent rear cassette, and I'm running a Zito cassette from AliExpress, like I'm lighter overall than Eagle Access.
Right. Wow.
Like, and I could spend an extra $300 or whatever than I did to go force for 50 grams. Like it's not, like it's not anything. Like all your money's in the crankset and the cassette for weight.
Right. So that's good to know. So if you prioritize weight and you're looking, where you should economize, where you should save and spend that money. So save on the shifters, but spend on the crankset and the cassette.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah. I was riding the, completely different, but 9-speed box level 2. And holy cow, that rear cassette. I think it was I think it was 600 grams.
Oh my God. There's like there are wheels that are lighter than that.
Yeah. I was going to say, was it made out of lead? Like, come on.
It had its own gravity. I mean, one of the reasons it's not on the bike right now.
Yeah. I mean,
it may be on Craigslist soon. So if you're looking for it,
I was gonna say if anybody's looking for it, like shameless plugs of my own channel, but I have one it's all from Zito, and I've been testing their cassettes for a while. They have a lightweight 11 to 50, and they have an 11 to 52 as well on their website. I want to say they were about $80 to $90, but they were sub 400 grams or real close depending on your cog size. And that works with the standard Shimano, free hub body. Yeah. They do have some 10 and 9 teeth options, and I'm testing their 9 to 50 and 11 speed, but they do have a 12 speed version as well.
How do they shift?
Honestly, really good. I mean, really? SRAM shifts like a Gatling gun. That's what I tell people. Like it shifts hard if you don't hit the ramp just right. Sometimes you'll hear the thunk, but I tell everybody it's kind of like driving a sports car. Like Shimano, in my opinion, is like you can kind of nurse it into the next gear, kind of no matter what you're doing, and kind of it gets in there. SRAM, if you don't nail it perfect, it'll thunk a little bit, but if you get it just right, it's like it didn't even happen. So it shifts really crisp. I've ridden Sunrace, Shimano cassettes, E13 for a long time, and then the Zito one. And the Zito one shifts like the E13. It's a real CNC'd like cassette so it shifts really hard.
Okay, good.
Which can be good in certain scenarios where I've never had it like miss going up, like climbing, like some kind of random steep. It gets in there. It's going down that you're going to hear it like the dunk, into it a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, that's
and then
good with their alloy, because I've bent, like the amount of cassettes I've bent and like broken and stuff. Wheat and like hard go. I don't know.
Yeah. You broke up there. So you bent some cassettes.
I bent cassettes and like broke them and stuff. And I'm like, God, am I like gaining weight?
Too many watts.
Like, what are, yeah, like,
dude. It's always too many watts. No matter what happens, always too many watts.
Or like, is it like bad, bad shifts or whatever? So like, I'm weary of bad cassettes now. So like,
that's the thing where they do make their lightweight ones. I even mentioned in the video when I showed it, is like, this is for someone who's going to clean their cassette often. And two, like, because I mean, any lightweight cassette, like or any lightweight component, no matter how light you go, it's going to do that. Now they have other ones that are more sturdy, but the big thing that I think is important for like anybody who's looking at the 10 to 52, which Pink Bike actually made a comment on, that I made a comment on a video for mine too, with having the 9 instead of the 11, is that's for somebody who's like, hey, I don't need any more climbing gear than the 50 I already have, but I want more top end. So now they can reduce their front ring, or enlarge their front ring with the 52 to get the same climbing ratio, and then now have a little bit more top end. And then like, that's what I kind of mentioned in my video with the 9, it allows me to reduce from an 11, 6 teeth in the front, roughly, to have the same climbing gear and same top speed. So when I'm doing Grinduro and it's 7,500 feet of climbing in 70 miles, I'm going to want all the climbing gear I can get, because like I'm going to be climbing the whole day. I'm not going to lose a whole lot on the downhill, or vice versa. If it's somebody who has a gravel bike that's trying to make it a little more versatile for road, well, now with like a 38 tooth front ring, I can do like 35 miles an hour at 90 RPM.
Right?
Yeah.
Plenty of top end.
I ran it through the numbers, and if you're going to run a 650B by 1.9 inch tire, 38 tooth chain ring, you'd get 101 gear inches on the top end and 19 on the low. So you get sub 20, which is I think perfect for like mountainous, like rugged touring.
Yeah.
So I think this would make a great bike packing drivetrain. I am kind of bummed that it doesn't seem like they're going to be very willing to support it with drop bars anytime soon. That you're going to have to hack it somehow if you want to use it.
I think
it'd be a cross
SRAM's going to do it for a while.
Like, they would build this for their cross-country racers who are looking for that sprint gear at the end of the race, right? Like these guys who can run a 44 tooth chain ring for an hour race that includes a lot of climbing. So I'm interested in the mountain bike side, because I think cross-country bikes are going to start looking funny with like big rings. and like huge cassette. I'm used to seeing big cassettes now. Actually, to see a small cassette now, like, when's the last time you guys seen like a small cassette and you walk by and you're like, what is that?
How's he ride that?
Right.
How do you go anywhere?
How do you get
What is that, a 36? How do you get out of the driveway?
Like I have a 36 tooth here somewhere, and I had it on a bike, and I was like, this is weird. I don't know what this is.
So here's a quick question. We'll answer this one. So what does gear inch mean, and how does it translate into real life for a noob, please? So if you go to like a website like Gear Calc and you put in your gear range in the front and the rear, you can calculate it, and it creates a series of numbers. You can either do it as a gain ratio or gear inch, and basically the higher the number, the harder the gear. The lower the number, the lower the gear. And a good example is if you have a 19 gear inch like this drivetrain, you could basically pedal up a wall with stuff on your bike. So you could, you're not going to be going very fast, but you can get up like a 16% grade with, 30 pounds on your bike, no problem. On the other end, like 101's, it's fairly tall. Like if you're spinning that at 80, 90 RPM, you're at least like 25, like mid 20s, upper 20 mile per hour, right? So.
Yeah, basically, I think the easiest way I describe it to people is a gear inch essentially is if you're going to do one pedal rotation in whatever gear ratio you're in, that's the distance you're going to travel. Now, most people aren't going to know what that feels like. So what I tell everyone to do is I'll send them the link, the same website, gear inch calculator.
There's a bunch. Yeah.
And so what I tell people is in the video I just did, because I kind of talked about it and I try to like simplify it because it is very confusing at first, is I think the easier thing to digest is what is that going to get you at certain RPM? That really translates well for top speed for 1x. For climbing, it's like, okay, well, I can go 3 miles an hour versus like 3.5. It's just to show you like it's going to be easier, but by how much? Like for me, when I did Grinduro last year, I was doing 12 to 15% grade of climb for 13 miles straight. And so the difference for me that I was looking at was, okay, if I went from this ratio last year to this ratio, how much increase in cadence am I going to have? Because I couldn't do 45 to 52, RPM for that long. Like my knees were screaming. So that's where I look at it as, okay, well, I'm still going 3 miles an hour or 4 miles an hour like I was, but now that's going to be at 70 RPM instead of 50. That's what was matter to me. So I would look at in different variations because it's going to translate better to you in different scenarios. So really look into that. Yeah,
and generally, like I tend to like to spin when I climb, so that's why I prefer lower gear.
Yeah,
and part of that is just distributing the work. It's kind of like the difference. Imagine if you were gonna run up a 20-story building, and you had the choice of either doing it, really quickly, one step at a time, or doing these big leaps, 3 steps at a time. You'd be faster doing the bigger leaps, but you'd probably poop out a lot quicker rather than distributing the work over, more repetitions.
Yeah.
So. And lower gear inches will get you there. So who do you guys think this drivetrain is for? I mean, it seems like a lot of money for an upgrade, I
think it's it's the new spec. I mean, I think this GX is the workhorse for SRAM. I think that's what, they spec tons of bikes with it. So I think having that option is going to be great for people who, are getting into it. I mean, I tell everyone the same thing. If you aren't going to use it, you have it when you need it. And if you find out that you're never in the 52, okay, well then bump up your front ring.
Right.
And vice versa. If you're always in the 52, make it a little smaller. Like no shame in like that game, like do what you need to do. I think it's going to be for someone who it's going to come stock on a bunch of new bikes. There's hands down GX comes on almost every new brand, no matter what brand you're in. GX is offered on a ton of bikes.
One of their bikes, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's going to be on there now. Is it going
to? Mostly in the OEM bike market. It's gonna. We're gonna see a lot next year.
I think that going for aftermarket, like you said, it's $370 for 2 teeth. Most people, again, unless they're really hurting. And for any bike nerdery, like the rough ratio I always tell people is 1 tooth in the back easier is like 3 in the front. So if you want that extra 2 teeth, that is like shrinking the front ring by six teeth. And you might not be able to do that based on what your front ratio is. So yes, it makes sense for that if you're climbing a lot. And it depends on your terrain. Like there's some stuff around me that is high teens, low 20s. Granted, is it super long? No, but I don't live in the hilliest of areas, and there are places where I totally get it.
Yeah. We live in, Montana and like in the valley. So every ride goes up at least, to get into next valley, at least like easily 1,500, 2,000 feet. All of our climbs have at least 1,000 feet of climbing, or all of our rides have at least 1,000 feet of climbing. Here's a funny comment, which I will turn into a question. Friction Di2 still looks like robot genitals. So here's the thing. At what point is the rear cassette going to be so big that the derailleur is just going to just drag on the ground?
True.
There's got to be a point when it's like, that's it. That is like the max, because you're just gonna be ripping off those $200 derailleurs, on every ride.
Well, I mean, at that point, I think the pinion, like the gearbox thing, is gonna have to take over. Like if people want
the
more
roll-off
range,
hub.
it has to. It has to.
I can see the industry maybe experiment with like a different placement of the rear derailleur,
Like
or
above.
something.
It's like an
Right?
above.
Yeah. Why not? It's.
I think
just-
the other thing too with the E13 thing, and I saw a comment earlier that was like, why no one needs a 9. So the reason for E13 when they came out with the 946, which they have in the 12-speed and 11-speed, is just for that, just for derailleur placement. They said, well, if we could do a 946, you're technically getting like 513% of range compared to 500 and a 1050, and now your derailleur is X amount of millimeters or centimeters closer to your frame instead of the ground. So again, that makes sense.
Right.
Like the above derailleurs, you heard it here first in ACN. There we go.
Yeah,
We got that exclusive.
Next big trend.
That exclusive. Yeah, that'll be next week. The next week's topic.
Next week, SRAM releases are. What would you call that? I don't know. We'll come up with a
it's not
Kinderkoppen, or something.
Pretty good.
The Kinderkoppen derailleur, so it doesn't drag on the baby heads.
And it would have that stupid, annoying. I don't know if you guys have ever worked on like the Shimano derailleurs that I can't remember the name of them, but they pull the other way, like they're reversed.
So when you pull on them, the shadow ones?
No, it's like when you actually push on the big lever, it goes into a harder gear, and when you release, it goes into easier. It's reverse.
Okay.
Huh.
They're not cool.
Don't buy them. All right. So if you guys are enjoying this content so far, be sure to too many pictures and pictures. Give the video a thumbs up. It helps with the view velocity and really helps grow the channel. Okay. So we covered everything. I mean, I wish I'm actually pretty stoked on it. I think it makes sense on not as an upgrade, but we'll see in OEM bikes. I wish that they would start thinking about road shifter support, or include that at some point in the plan.
I think with their new the wide access, I think they're using that, and I think ETAP is doing well enough to where it took how many years to get even a force level. Right. So I think it's going to be a while before. I mean, I hope they do it, but I think it's going to be a while before they do it, because they are riding the everyone's buying this train and they're making their dollars. And the only thing I wish with the expansion is I think the opposite. I think they should have brought it to like SX and NX.
They will though, like that.
Yeah, they will.
It happens so fast in the mountain bike world for them.
Yeah.
I remember when like GX was just 10 speed, and then like the next day they're like, we're doing Eagle.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that was quick.
So that leads us to our main. Well, should we go into bike hacks, or do you guys want to touch on COVID and bicycling and our observations?
No, let's
do that first.
Oh,
bike
there's
hacks.
Disagreement. There's a disagreement.
Rochambeau. Well, let's segue into bike hacks, because I feel like that's a natural segue. Yeah. So we're talking wide gears. You can I've been whinging about the inability to connect the SRAM mountain bike drivetrain to road shifters, but we've all experimented to some extent on doing that on our channels.
Yes.
Do you want to Mike? Do you want to kick it off with any gearing hacks?
Yeah. So I think me and Russ did a very similar series. His was a lot more extensive. Mine, I basically broke down for my Monster Gravel carbon bike build, was the Garbaruk rear cage extension for basically adding a mullet level of range to your mechanical, shifters for road. And there's a few hacks I found in there that I will eventually do a video on to describe more in detail. But for everybody watching live, you get this content exclusive. So what we found was, I actually experimented on my buddy's bike, who's in the chat right now. What we found was, even though I believe, Russ, you mentioned that they mentioned just Type 3 is what they recommend for the rear derailleur. Mm-hmm. So So for his, he found a deal on eBay for a medium cage force rear derailleur. and it was a Type 1.2, but I didn't even notice that at the time. I thought they were all Type 3, and I just told him, I was like, hey, you know what? In theory, a medium cage and a long cage are just going to be the cage length difference, and they don't just sell the cage. So the medium cages are cheaper now because everyone wants to expand their range. And he found a deal. I want to say it was like $40-$50 for a force rear derailleur, something stupid cheap. Like you can barely get an Apex rear derailleur for that. So gets it. We put it on, and it totally works fine. Has the same capacity. It bolted on just the same. There's one little like piece in the rear that doesn't have this shoulder piece it kind of sits on, but essentially it functions the same. Installs the same way, and it's been great. I have it on my bike with the Type 3 Apex 1 rear derailleur with a 9-50 cassette I got from Zito Cassettes, which is technically even more range than the Eagle cassette they currently offer. And I'd have to look at the percentages if it's the same or more than the 10-52. I think it is by a tad bit.
Is this the one you got?
Yes. Yeah. So that one, and then it was funny once I was in the premiere for my video for that, and some guy was like, "Oh man, I'm so bummed. I saw your video after I just bought GRX," and I was like, "Dude," and I like linked him to the Bike Rumor like post they did like that day, and they had just released that they're doing pre-orders for their GRX version so that it can work with their 10-50 as well. So it's going to be something that's going to be going to Shimano for their gravel group set. But I've loved that hack. It's been great.
Yeah, like I've run it on my bike and surprised at how well it worked.
Yeah,
it seemed a little hacky, but I think at the end of the day, it's kind of expensive. To do. Like there's certainly like more inexpensive options, but one cool thing is you do get to pimp it out with the derailleur cage and their skeletonized pulleys,
jockey wheels.
The big jockey wheels. So there's a bit of aesthetics to it as well as the functionality. So I've played with that. One interesting kind of variation of that is if you have I have a video on this. If you have a rival road derailleur and a GX mountain bike rear derailleur, you can actually take the cage off of that and move it and transplant it to the road derailleur. Again, not a cheap hack to do, just because you need 2 derailleurs, and if something goes wrong that you snap it off somewhere, then you need 2 derailleurs.
And what's a GX like Eagle rear go for? Isn't it about $120 anyway?
Yeah, it's spendy.
So getting the Garborough cage with jockey wheels, I think was $135.
Yeah.
So what are we at? Is that Canadian or US?
That's Canadian, but that's what I just spent on one.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, like the Garborough in US dollars is like 130 something. So realistically, it's like, you kind of get the bling factor. It is CNC'd aluminum, so in theory, it should be stronger. You do get the bigger, nicer jockey wheels around. That cost. I think the interesting hack would be if the SX Eagle lower would work, because I know that's actually sub $100, I believe, for the rear derailleur.
Yeah, that one's cheaper.
Steel,
so that would be
isn't it? Like
it's not. Yeah,
soft steel.
Right. So that's where that'd be the only thing that really makes sense, because unless you got the derailleur really cheap and beat up, which I don't think anyone's going to post like a busted rear derailleur online, but they could. But well, I mean, go check out his affiliate links. But
I think one variation of that hack that I feel like is economical and also makes sense if you happen to break it is you've seen those JTech shift mates. It's basically like a problem solver. So there's a little pulley system, and that translates the cable pull and the shifter to the mountain bike pull. But that is, I think, $50. And you pair that with a GX rear derailleur. But let's say you break that derailleur somehow, then you don't have to get a road derailleur and a cage, or road derailleur and mountain bike. So it's not the I tend to not like those pulley systems, just because they jack up the wire, and there's no good way if you have to essentially replace a wire if you do any work on it.
But they work
pretty good, and once it broke in, it shifted well. So I think that's another good option.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, any hacks from you, Eric?
Drivetrain
you're
not really. Like, I'm still just adopting 11 speed. Like
we're using before.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I just kind of I only use 10 speed stuff, and then like a few of my bikes are 11. I've not really spent any time. Like, I'm still in like the blissful world of like being able to mix and match all mountain bike and road parts, and it's like this is a good life to live. And like most,
don't leave that world. There's
not
out there.
It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's expensive once you leave that world.
Like
yeah.
And I don't plan to. Like I maybe a little bit. Like, the nice part about the 11 speed road stuff is it's still 1-to-1 exact pull. So like even the purple rock hopper, like I don't find the X9 derailleurs really love to shift up into a 42, and I'm not particularly satisfied with how it's shifting. And I'm like, well, I'll just get another Apex 1 clutch derailleur, and it'll shift perfect because it's a road lever, it's a road derailleur, perfect. Like I don't need to hack anything. It's all compatible.
Right.
I mean, I hack a million other things, but drivetrain stuff. No, my drivetrains are good, man.
Nice.
He's got Eric's got the Elmer's glue and glitter tire sealing. He can start selling on his web store. What he's doing here. Yeah,
just melted glue sticks that I just distill with water. Whatever.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier, other drivetrain hacks that we've done. One that I did for the Brompton bicycle. If you guys aren't familiar, it's a folding bike made in England, little 16-inch wheels, and they have a 6-speed version. The rear wheel has a Sturmey Archer 3-speed hub, and it's got 2 cogs on that. So that's how you get your 6 speeds. I actually turned it into 12-speed by replacing the crankset with a double. So with that combination, gave me 6 speeds. But the hack was to get to shift the chain into the lower chain ring. I could do it while pedaling. I actually have an ancient video on the YouTube channel. I'd use my heel as the crank was moving and push it over. But to move it up to the higher chain ring, I have to stop and find the stick or use my fingers.
Stick.
He's got a shifting stick he keeps in his handlebar bag. Yeah,
I did practice. I did attempt to shift it up the chain ring while pedaling. Like I think at the time with my toe.
Oh god!
Like I was wearing Ad Keen sandals, so they have a big kind of like rubbery toe box. So I gingerly put that under the chain and try to lift it up as I was pedaling. Not successful.
Yeah. I'd like to try that.
Yeah,
that's great.
I saw that. I know you guys. I don't know if you guys know Jan Hein from Bicycle Quarterly. I think he posted a picture. It's either them or the Rivendell folks. Of those old school like rod front derailleurs.
Yeah,
that'd be rad. I would totally rock that.
Suicide shifter type thing.
Oh, suicide shift. Yeah, that would be.
I mean, it makes total sense. Like it's just a rod that kind of is like it's between your legs, right? Like
yeah.
And you just kind of like. Push it over and like force it into place. It really is no different than using your hand.
Right.
It's just like less archaic and
a 4-foot stick that you can impel yourself on. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Don't crash. Why would you crash?
I will say if those came out in production again and they were like reasonably affordable, I'd totally mess around with those.
I'd buy one. Yeah. Yeah. I'd do something really dumb with one. No problem.
Yeah. So wait, Russ, have you ridden like a roll off?
I've not. I get asked that question all like on the channel, and
the only thing the only thing I really like about the roll off hub is have you guys seen the shifter?
No.
It's not it's like a grip it's like a twist shifter, and then it just has like a little like line on it, and then as you twist it, it just makes a mountain. So like that's how you know like you're going into like the easier gear. Like that's the best part of the whole thing. Like that's all I want.
Once you get to the top of the mountain, does it reset? Because it's like
no, you just get to the top of the mountain and then it goes I don't know, like you want more, and he goes, like that's what I wanted to do. Yeah.
There was a drivetrain out, I want to say like in 2008 or 9. I think it was New Vinci or Da Vinci or something, and it was similar to a roll-off, but it wasn't gears, it was like balls or cylinders or something. So
that was kind of like a CVT transmission, right? It was like a cone-shaped setup. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was infinite, in terms of steps, and it had a similar kind of visual indicator where the line would slowly turn into a mountain if you're going into the lower gears.
I feel bad for like the mechanic at a crappy shop that
someone
visiting came in, and they just assume every mechanic knows everything. And they're like, fix this weird hub, and it's like, okay.
So what other weird hacks have you guys done?
My worst hack was like my ignorance is bliss beginning days of like working on bikes, where I was like all steel is the same. Like you can't get hurt by it. Apparently it's not. I've learned that like 6-7 days ago.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's recent. All right. But I bought, I wanted to get into road riding, and I was riding a single speed around everywhere. And I was like, I want a road bike, and I can't afford a road bike, but I can buy a drivetrain on Craigslist. And I could buy I have wheels from the single speed that I bought for $100. I just need a frame to bolt this all onto. And there was I didn't really know fully the difference between 27-inch and 700. I knew there was a difference, but I didn't I didn't know what it was.
Right.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna this bike came up on Craigslist. It was $50. And I was like, that's the bike right there. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna put all modern stuff on it. And this all stems from seeing an Eddie Merckx, an 80s Eddie Merckx with lightweight wheels on it and full campy. And I was like, man, that's sick. I'm gonna build that. And I didn't realize how expensive that bike would be. So I took the 27-inch wheels off, and I swapped to a carbon fork with a different threadless 1-inch stem. I was like, man, I'm making moves here. Go to throw the
hill climb bike now.
Go to throw the 700 C rear wheel on and put the brake on. And I'm like, well, the brake is grabbing just the tip of the tire. Yeah. And I'm like,
that's how you slow down.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not right. These wheels are different size.
Somehow,
I'm gonna have to call this guy. I gotta call him and tell him, hey man, you got some weird standard. And then after a little bit of research, I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, well, how have people solved this? And everyone's like, well, you need a different bike or you need long reach brake calipers. I'm like, I already bought these SRAM ones. I'm not going and buying anything else.
Right.
So I can weld. I have a welder, and I weld stuff on other things. And I was like, well, this is an easy fix. You just cut that off, and then you weld a new one in. It's that easy. So I'm just angle grinder, ramp, ramp. And then I'm just I just go to town I'd be working on a car, grinding the nub off, if I break through, whatever, just add weld to it. It doesn't matter. All steel's the same. And I'm like, well, I mean, I've cut the brake bridge out to be about this size. It's not going back in. There's no way. And I'm like, and I'm not going to a steel. I'm not going to a steel store because they have minimums. And I'm not spending $50 on raw material on that, because that would be stupid. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go to Canadian Tire, which is just a Lowe's or whatever.
Right.
And I'm walking around. I'm like, there's got to be. And by the way, they have steel that you can buy, and I didn't know this at the time. So I'm like, what would work as a thing I could buy for cheap that I could build the brake bridge out of? and I walked by a folding chair, and like the
All steel's the same, baby.
all steel's the same. That's just painted. There was like the cross member for like holding it from getting it to like whip, like fall apart from you this way. I was like, that's the steel I want right there. And this chair is $6. So I bought it. So I brought it home, and I was like, okay, it needs to be about like this. So I cut it, and then I mean, I'm gonna say I mitered it. I used an angle grinder. I just kind of like poked at it, and then I just like hammered it into place and just like booger well, like, and then I put the wheel in, and I was like, my God, that's close. And I just drilled a hole.
You're breaking up.
All the way through, bolted the like. So there wasn't even like there wasn't really anywhere for the brake nut to actually like butt up against. Like there might have been like a couple thou of material.
He just booger weld some like extra like
I
like
just
meat
kind of
on there.
like I just kind of like bolted it in and like tightened it down so hard, and never painted it, and rode it for like probably 4 months. And like people would see it and they're like, "You can weld," and I'm like, "You see
Obviously
it?
not.
You see it? Like you're
Like, you got a
seeing
chair?
it? I will take.
I can make a frame out of that folding chair over there.
So
And
how did it ride? Did the brake hold up? Like, or did it
yeah,
shudder?
totally
or-
did. It rode like totally like the only reason that I wouldn't do that again now is that I've learned so much in my that was probably 7 or 8 years ago. And like I've just learned so much about bikes that I'm actually more afraid of them now than I was then, obviously.
Right.
But I remember I Googled the other day, like, is how much structure does the brake bridge actually give? And I know the answer is not very much because I cut one out and welded a chair in its place. Yet I still looked up and like, there's people like, you can't cut that out. The bike will fold in half. And I'm like, I know for a fact that it will not. That's my worst. That is my worst hack.
You know,
That's an impressive hack.
Yeah.
That's really good. And that reminded me of some that I did. I don't remember because it's been so long. So my first like fixed gear was a conversion, unfortunately. And I remember that it was like some old Motobacane bike, and I got it, and it was like all whatever blown apart. Like it didn't shift. The wheels were all out of whack. I got it for like nothing, like $10, something like that. It was like emerald green with like blue graphics. It was primo. And so I bought some like 700C like fixed gear wheels, and this is like way before. This is like right when MASH SF got posted on YouTube for like the first time. So it was like real still underground. So like you could find parts really cheap because no one wanted them because it wasn't a thing yet. So I found like a set of like deep V's, flip flop, bolt-ons. And I was like, all right, well, I figured out how to do it. And like, cause I was like, oh, you have to get a steel frame because it had the vertical dropouts.
Yes.
It's like, oh, well, it's fine because it just smashes in when you
Right,
the 126 to 120.
Yeah.
It's 6 mil.
Don't
It's fine.
matter.
You just bolt that effort down. So you do that, and then I was super broke in college, right? Had a double crank set. I could afford a chain ring, not the bolts. So what did I do? Took my dad's belt sander, turned it upside down, put it on the ground, and then held a double chain ring like bolt onto the top of it, and then I would just like screw in the other one to see how much, because I didn't know how much I had to thread them down, so I had to hold all 5 bolts like slow. It took like 3 hours to do this,
like burning your fingers. They're getting hot.
Just holding it on there with like, and then eventually I got like vice grips or something to like hold the nut on there, hoping it was like kind of straight so that they would butt up.
Yeah.
And they just kept doing that until I could tighten both sides. And then, like, okay, go on to the next one. And then I would slowly do that. So it had like a 40, because it was like man gearing back in the day. So like the inner ring was a 42, so I just like ran that, and I forgot what the rear, cog was at the time. But that was what I did. And then, because I was like, oh man, all the guys in MASH have bullhorn bars. Can't afford bullhorn bars.
Oh, you just
so I took the drops and then just like hacksaw those to where like they were like this. So like the tops were like here, so like Oh, it was great. Rode that thing, and then I would try to like, skid or whatever, and the rear wheel at the end of the ride would be kind of cockeyed. Yeah. And so what I did was I grabbed one of those, I think it was Soma. Somebody had like a dropout tensioner for a horizontal dropout, but it didn't fit on a road frame because it was thicker. So I just like filed the inside of it so I could have like it like cockeyed up backwards. So the tensioner was actually against like the frame, and it would suck the wheel into it, but only on one. Yeah, because I didn't have the time or want to bother with doing the second one.
So is that drive side, or it'd be more beneficial to do it non-drive side almost to keep it from?
I forgot which side I put it on, but this was
to see what it was.
It was over 10 years ago. Yeah, it was a long and it was something like that where like I filed the inside. I bought the set. I was like, no, I don't have to undo, because I didn't want to have to bring, what was it? It had like a funky like nut size on the bottom. So if I did get a flat, because nothing was tubeless back then, tubes, whatever, and I couldn't afford good tires, so I'd get flats all the time. It's like, oh man, I have to like undo it to like do that and then pull off the rear wheel. I'm like, I don't want two of those. Like I just need one. It's fine.
What an annoyance.
Yeah.
Was it the tug nuts or something like that?
I don't remember what they were called, but it was something like that. So like I said, they were designed for to hold onto the rear and pull it back. So mine was opposite. It would hang on the frame and then pull it towards the frame because it was vertical.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And so it was.
Yeah, I mean they're like chain tensioners that will hold onto the axle, and like most stock BMXs always came with them, because when you do grinds, a lot of times the wheel will move on you. So you'll put two chain tensioners on.
Exactly. They're basically those just modified for fixed gear. Yeah. It was. Yeah. That was. I forgot about that one. Man, that brings me back. Wow.
That's back when we all had more time than money.
Yeah. And a lot more, less sense also. Yeah, just like
the less sense is the part I miss. Like just doing things because you're like, well, I know I did this to a motorcycle, so this is probably okay. Like,
it should work.
Yeah,
it should be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Cool. Yeah, those are gonna be hard to top. Should we move on? Let's quickly touch on COVID and bikes, or do you guys have any more hacks you want to share?
I mean, I only have the latest good one that I did that got more praise on the channel when I built it than what I anticipated it to, was like on the track lacrosse bike, when I was like, I don't want to use like a crappy wheel set. I have these off of a bike that was sent to me. They're tubeless. I'm just going to unlace this rear wheel. You know, the rim is asymmetric. The hub is obviously geared. I should be able to get away with swapping the sides of the spokes, rebuilding everything, and it should center. And it worked like perfect. Yeah. And like people were like, what did you just do? Like, like how is it that all worked together? And I'm like, well, like a fixed gear hub is narrower than, you know, whatever, but it's asymmetric. So like typically you'd want your shorter spokes on the drive side, and then the longer ones on the other side to try and get everything to work hefties. And like just like trying to word it the way I was able to think of it, and just do it so that it like that the rim would center, and like I was like, yeah, you just swap the spokes. Doesn't that make sense? And some people were like, you did what? Like, yeah, and the tension's like perfect, and is this like, and everyone's like, you just built a wheel because you wanted to go ride a bike. And I was like, yeah,
that's the whole point of building the wheel, right?
I was like, and that's like the difference. I used to weld chairs into bikes, and now it's like I can take it.
Now at least he's using bike parts. Like, hey, he progressed here. Yeah,
he's learned.
I think
the hack that'll grab. You guys keep talking.
Okay, so I think for me the big one was tubeless conversions.
Yes.
One, I tell everybody, if your wheels aren't tubeless and you're using Stan's tape, do 3 layers.
Yeah. Ooh,
if it doesn't work at that point, huh?
That's expensive.
Well, yeah. But The other one is actually that's better is either Easton or Giant. They use 3M. So the beauty of the 3M tape is it's only single layer.
Mhm.
And so if you it's this like clear brown color, so you can kind of see through it, but you only need one layer of it. So yes, you do double it, but two like rolls of tape compared to two like a new wheel set, still cheaper.
Yeah.
So I would do 2 layers of that, and that would seal. It'd be initially a little difficult. Maybe you'd probably need a compressor. You couldn't do it with like a floor pump.
Yeah.
Or you need like some type of like pressurized tank. But that tape, phenomenal. So if you're gonna try to put on a wheel that isn't tubeless ready, if they make the width in that 3M tape, again, it's either branded under Easton or Giant. That's the way to go, because again, you're going to use half instead of using the stand tape, which you need 3 layers on, which is getting the tire very close to the edge of the rim. This is going to get you lower than that, probably more likely to seal. That is huge. I used to do that on our hybrids at my Giant dealer, because our high-end hybrids, someone came in, he wanted disc brakes, he wanted a decent drivetrain, and he knew about tubeless or wanted it or heard us talking about it. It was, hey, it's going to be $50 in tape, granted, but even a cheap budget wheel set, you're going to be a couple $100. So, it all worked out. Or Gorilla tape, or whatever.
Yeah,
that's also another thing. Yeah.
All right. So YouTube comments. Let us know where you're watching from, and if you're digging the content so far, give it a thumbs up. Helps the videos out. Okay, I'll share with you a current hack, which was made possible by a viewer. He sent over these things. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, is this the flat pedal power meter?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So So I had to buy new cleats because I was missing a couple bolts, but I did buy a flat pedal that's designed to take a Lucio, and then I'm gonna.
Man, we are in the future.
I'm gonna do some science, and we're gonna do.
I'm so happy about this.
I might do the flat pedal and clipless video again. Although, I've come to realize that no one's gonna be happy. Like, some people are gonna say I'm doing the science wrong or whatever, but just for my personal enjoyment, I'm gonna do it.
Screw the people.
But also test things like long chain stay versus short chain stay. There's a bike I'm testing that you can adjust it from like 420 to 440 to see if it makes any meaningful difference. And I think power definitely a little bit more accurate in terms of trying to measure effort rather than heart rate. So this is gonna.
I think my biggest question is who why did someone make that platform for a Lucio cleat? I don't know.
You didn't see the Kickstarter, Eric? Come on, you didn't see that?
Oh, no.
It's so if you're in your work boots, obviously going to the bar on your bike. Okay. Not negating the fact that you're probably going to be sweaty and gross when you get there.
Yeah.
You can wear your dress shoes on your $10,000 Pinarello. Obviously.
That's totally what I'm going to do too. I'm going to wear my dress shoes.
Great. So it did well.
Yes, obviously the Kickstarter made it. Like, it's in Russ's hands. So
this leads me to the question as to why, if you're running mountain bike pedals, why there's no equivalent kind of pedal-based power meter, that you either have to go wheel-based or
crank-based. There's stages. That's what I run. But there is the hack that, I'm totally blanking on the brand. It was a mountain bike based, it's a road based pedal system. I think it was I don't know if it wasn't Expedo. It might have been. I think Shane Miller, he did it, where he found out that he took the mountain pedal body and was able to put it on the road power meter pedal, and it bolted together. What he found was, because of the system was basically housed in the axle, so that the space between the crank arm and the pedal had this bigger O circle piece that he had to actually like kind of hollow out a little bit of his mountain shoe to like get it to clear when he clipped into it. And that was like a big thing. That was the only pedal based system, but it was like a hacked version, and it didn't work with mountain shoes because the mountain shoe tread would impede into that.
Right.
I want to say that's who did it, but probably getting the brand wrong.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of power based mountain bike riders using a flat pedal.
I mean, for like gravel.
No, honestly, I'm
or use a built around the SPD just for hike a bike, and I feel like that would be a market where it kind of crosses both.
Right.
Yeah, for me, like because I'm training for Granduro right now, and training is a loose term, but just trying to survive it. I looked at like my numbers from last year, and I'm trying to train like an endurance paced like road or distance ride at slightly elevated power to get used to just being like hours in the saddle at that power level, which was higher than last year, trying to get to that point. I'm not looking for like anything else. It's mainly just, I want to make sure my consistency is at a set point to where, if they had a pedal based system, that was great. I mean, my review that I did for the SIGI power meter, which is super cheap. It's like $300 and something for a direct bolt-on. Now you need a SRAM style crankset or rotor or cinch, but it's very cheap for a direct drive. It does left and right power. You do have to go to a like bolt-on style chainring where all of mine now are direct mount, so that's like kind of an inconvenience. And I'm thinking about swapping to that because it is a lot more accurate and it's rechargeable via USB. So you don't have to worry about the CR 3032s like getting bad or getting water in there. So there is benefits to that system, and I'm going to try to compare the two. But that's mainly for me. It's just like I just use it for measured output. I know that I can do this much for this long. So if I'm getting real cocky and trying to keep up with somebody who's like way above my skill set, and I see my average power creeping up beyond what I think it could be, well, at hour 6, and I'm going to bonk and not be able to pedal the rest of the way, that doesn't help me out at all. So that's where there's.
Do you use heart rate at all with that, or just pure power?
Yeah. I have both.
Is there a point where heart rate becomes wildly inaccurate that you have to rely on power? Like I've not put these on yet.
Yeah. I mean, totally. It really is, because the thing is, your heart rate can be very affected by your fatigue level. So if you did a really hard ride yesterday, you're going to wake up and your heart rate's going to be elevated sitting there. So heart rate's a good gauge. But power really, I tell everyone, if you're going to get into it, like, don't get too technical. Do one like FTP test to give yourself a gauge. So do the 20-minute test, Russ, like even on the trainer, or go outside if you have a consistent flat road for 20 minutes.
Does it work on a hill? I've got a hill that's probably about a half-hour climb.
Flat is better.
They don't
flat
want to do it on a hill.
Yeah, like you can. It's just basically what you want to do is give yourself that kind of range. That way you're going to gauge, like, if your FTP is 300 or it's 200, it's vastly different. So you just want to have that kind of idea. For me, that lets me know that, okay, well, this is the kind of power output at that level I can sustain for, if I'm doing an hour ride and I'm trying to push it and train or go hard, okay, well, I can set at 200 watts for an hour and then I'm dead. Like, and then, if I'm going 80 miles, it's very different as far as power output goes. So it's just,
for sure.
It's like it's like a gas gauge. That's how I tell everybody, like, think of it like a gas gauge. So if you want to do more, your power is going to go down, and having one FTP test every couple of months, even if you go that far, is just going to give you that feeler gauge. Can you do more miles to your tank in 6 months? Hopefully, if you're riding regularly, but that's it. Like, unless you check and, then you're not going to really know. So that's where it is going to be beneficial for endurance or distance. Right. And that's where I do think that the pedal-based system would be cool.
I'm excited. I'm not, like I'm shopping for really cheap shoes that'll take a road cleat, because right now all the shoes I have are SPDs or mountain SPDs. So we'll see. maybe try to find something locally. All right, so let's take it home. Let's touch on COVID and bikes a little bit. Interesting times in terms of trying to buy a bike. Like we mentioned earlier that the state 4130 adventure bike that they were selling for, I think, around $700 or $800 completely sold out in 3 days, mostly because of this show. Nothing to do with world events, but it's a real problem. Like most shops, all their affordable bikes are gone. I mean, is that what you're hearing in Halifax?
Yeah, like I said, I was in when I bought that derailleur, and I was at my friend Colin's shop. He was like, "Come check out this basement." Like and he, and he's like, "Every bike here is a repair bike. There is no bikes for sale."
Wow.
He's like, I think I have 2 bikes upstairs that are hanging that we can sell, but they're both $2,000 and over. And I was like, well, what about the rent? Like the whole rental fleet was about the rental fleet. And he's like, they're gone. They're sold.
Oh, dang.
Like we thought about doing, like, if there's no tourists, then why would we have a rental fleet?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
He said
Makes
the
sense.
day that they made that decision, like 2 days later, a school came in and bought all of them. Like they're like they're like, okay, we're gonna sell off the rental fleet, and then an academy was like, yeah, we'll take them. They were gone.
Yeah.
He's like, they're here because there is like 20 of them, and like they couldn't take them like now.
Yeah. Also, the demo bikes, they probably need a little bit of work.
No, I think they were bought for the tourist season. So they would have came in, got taken out of the box, and he's like, okay. Nobody has ridden them. They were like perfect. They were pristine. They were not like, I think Colin goes out of his way to actually buy proper new rental bikes every year.
Were they like hybrids or mountain bikes? Or?
Yeah, like mountain bikey hybrids, a bunch of Norcos. Yeah. But like they were like of that price point that like if we had there, it's like you're sitting on gold. Like, people just want bikes, so they're going out and buying them. He said the like the repair list. He's like, I mean, they live in Wolfville, and it's hard to be mean to people in a small town like that. So it's like, well, no, you're not going to get your bike back today. There's like 40 people ahead of you. Like, look at the shop. You can't even walk around in here right now. Yeah. They're like, well, I got to ride tonight. Yeah. And he's like, and I was like, well, you should capitalize on that. And he's like, well, I put a sign out front that if you pay $100, you can pay a $100 fee to get ahead of everybody else on top of whatever your repair is going to cost.
Did people do it?
He said nobody has done it yet. He said it's the most polite way that I've been able to tell people to just calm down. Like there's a wait.
There's a shop right down the street from me, Rockin' Road, and they have a few like mechanics on hand. Like it's a specialized shop. It's a decent higher end shop. They're at this point, as my buddy went there, I think a couple weeks ago, they said they weren't taking anyone in. Unless it was something they could do within like 10 minutes. Yeah. Like tube chain on, derailleur adjustment, basically it. Every other shop I've called in the area, at that point, because I needed like a brake bleed, which I don't have a kit for, and all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't even get one on Amazon because I needed a pro kit because I have road to whatever. Everything was sold out. So like, even if I could get it, I couldn't. Everyone was at least 2 weeks minimum out. Oh, dang. At least, no matter if they had one mechanic or 10, everybody was a minimum 2 weeks. And the nicer shops would schedule you. So they would say like, okay, well, we're going to schedule you for whatever, 13th, 47th, whatever day of the week it was. And you would just come in like the day before, and then you pick up that evening. But I remember I dropped off at one shop for something, for a derailleur, like hanger adjustment. And I walked in the shop, and I'm looking in the back, and I'm like, I don't see my bike. I'm like, where the hell's my bike at? It was on like the 3rd floor rack, like in the showroom. Like they were like, oh yeah, there's no room back there, and the guy had to like
dang.
go up on like a ladder and like pull it down like it was a new bike, and like, what the hell are you talking about? And he's like, oh yeah, it's up there, man. I'm like, oh, all right, okay, sure, all right, yeah. But yeah, it's insane how busy these places are. Which my whole thing is, I hope the boom sticks for infrastructure. That's all that I care about. I hope infrastructure gets better, more bike lanes, more awareness. I hope the people that are riding now understand how big of an asshole they might have been on the road for the last 10 years. Like all this, as bad as everything is and everything else that's going on, I hope infrastructure improves, and I hope people's attitude towards cyclists improves, because even with this whole big cycling boom, still had an issue with like guys in a beach town, which is predominantly cyclists now, the other day when I did a long ride, just like, and so I hope that improves over time.
I imagine they were driving a Dodge.
it was a BMW. But yes.
Yeah. What's interesting is like right when COVID was, I think like mid-March, when we were still in Tucson and things were looking serious, like the first thing I did was I went to the local bike shop and I bought replacement chains, sealant, all like the kind of consumables.
Yep.
And I remember walking out and the guy was like giving me like this "you're crazy" look. And now I'm not so
toilet
crazy.
paper
Man, buying like I was lucky
brake pads and everything.
Like I bought a 12-speed chain, but like there are no 8-speed chains.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Oh my God. Yeah, I couldn't imagine getting one of those
like
right now.
6, 7, 8-speed chains gone.
Yeah.
Right.
And like Altus derailleurs, no. You're not getting an Altus derailleur.
Tourney, like
no tourney. Zero tourneys.
Those are $150 a piece now. Yeah.
Zero Iseras. Lots of Alivio.
So here's where I think there's like an interesting opportunity for like our channels, right? Because there's tons of potentially new cyclists. They're not buying or interested in the high-end race bikes. And most of the that's who's buying these bikes, that's who's riding now, and a lot of the bigger channels still haven't made that pivot from talking about
racing and
racing to like honest to goodness beginner tips. Not beginner tips like, oh, this how the clipless shoes you should get, like beginner tips. So it's actually like I'm going to start doing a series, like a new to cyclist series, just starting from square one, trying to just lay it out there, all the things I wish I knew, because it's interesting times. Like all the bikes that have sold out tend to be the cheaper bikes.
Yep.
But the content that the brands are still putting out, and a lot of the major cycling outlets still focus on racing. So there's this huge gap between who's actually getting into cycling and then the information that the industry as a whole is pushing out. So
yeah, I just saw some YouTube ad for a Zwift race with Chris Froome and like a bunch of other, like, I don't know if they were non-pros or something, but that was like the ad I literally saw like 20 minutes before I get onto this.
Yeah.
Like I was like, all right, like this
sounds like a cool race.
But the best part was like the announcers, because they're like super into it. They're like, oh, this is gonna be the biggest upset of the year, and it like cuts to like some like animated character doing doing this, like no, like what, like like, and then he comments on some dude's avatar like that he has on Zwift, like, and then it cuts to like a scene of him on his Wahoo bike,
like
or
Big
Wahoo,
Bird.
like
Big Bird riding your bike.
yeah, exactly. And it was like, all right, like. And they're like, oh, this is gonna be the biggest upset of the year. Like, come on, man. Like, it's a Zwift race. Like, it's not. I get it, but come on.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a lot of the bike media outlets are still a little tone deaf. Like they don't know how to talk to these new riders. So I think it's good for channels like ours.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I don't know if I've seen an influx of people. Like, certainly I get a lot of comments where people are like, I came across your channel, and usually it'll be like, for some reason. Like, I don't know why, but here I am, and now I've watched 10 of your videos. And,
right.
Hey, man, you seem to know a lot about bikes. Keep making videos about them. And I'm like, very generic comment. Thank you.
Cool. Well, is there anything else that you guys want to talk about in terms of COVID? I mean, general bike shortage.
I think if you're just like anything else that's reopening, your servers at the restaurants or wherever understand that these bike shops are inundated with spider bikes. If you don't know what a spider bike is, that is the bike that you left in your shed or garage for the last 8 years, and it's either summertime or COVID apparently, and you bring them out and you don't do anything to them, and you bring them to a shop and you think that you just need air in the tires and you need a whole new bike. Give those guys a break because it is nuts right now.
Yeah.
If you can get a bike, get a bike. There is plenty of time to ride. Watch whatever you can to get into riding safely, but ride your bike. And like I said, I think that infrastructure development is going to be hopefully better at the end of this. And it's going to give you this new perspective of like, if you were never really anyone who, and I use the term cyclist very loosely, but just if you ride a bike, you're going to learn things and be more aware of things. So when you do get back in the car and are back to work, if you're not currently right now, you're going to be more aware and just more cautious of other things around you.
Hope and the dream.
Yeah, with the hope and the dream that when you are parked on the side of the beach and you slam open your driver's door, that you might look in your rearview mirror first.
Right.
Real quick, like
if you get like 1 out of 10 of those, like we'd all be thankful, So it's one of those things to where it's a great like thing that is a side effect of an unfortunate event. But at the end of the day, we all are human. We all are coming together over this one medium, which is cool. And every single person that I ride by that's on the side of the road, I always ask, hey, you good? You okay? Like, and I'll put the, just in case they, speak a different language, whatever, or tourist or whatever, like, you good? Like something,
Yep.
And I've pulled over, I've changed flats, I've done whatever, just so that they understand like this culture is a community and we're all here together, just trying to get somewhere, whether that's to the bar, to home, or somewhere in between, or a loop, to get back to go a mile longer than they ever have in their entire life. Like, it's all something we do together.
that's pretty noble of you. You don't have to do that when you ride a carbon bike, eh?
Well, no, that's when you know, that's right when you ride an S-Works.
Like
If somebody on an S-Works on this side of the road, like, I'm like, oh, he's good. I did a charity ride. This will be the last thing. I'll try to wrap this up quick. Did a charity ride. There was some girl by herself, and I was with a group of friends that were at mixed levels of riding, and this girl's on the side of the road trying to change her flat, looking like she was just having the worst time. I said, hey, you okay? She goes, no, I'm not. Pulled her tire off. No rim strip.
Oh,
geez.
And I said, okay,
that's a problem.
This is the first. And I was like, wait, and it was an older bike. I was like, how long have you had this bike? She goes, I just bought it last week from some shop, pawn shop, wherever. Sold her a bike, no rim strip. And so, yes, obviously she pumps up to 80 PSI. It's going to blow through the spoke holes. So I had a lightweight road bike at the time, and I had lightweight tubes. So I asked her, I was like, who's got the gnarliest, either puncture resistant or just a normal tube? Because I have like the thin boys. Like, you got to give me something. So put that in there. I took like rolls of my handlebar tape and like tried to like kind of tape it. And I just put it to like 40 PSI. Luckily, she was 5 foot and didn't weigh a whole lot. And I just said, we're going to nurse this with you, because we were far enough behind the pack that like the service vehicle that rode around had already passed us. And I already saw him. I'm like, it's going to be 20, 30 minutes, but let's go at least a little farther out.
Right.
Rode with her for like 30, 40 minutes. Guy comes around, and I was like, listen, you need to change her back tube. You need to put rim strips in there and probably check the front. He goes, I don't know if I have rim strips. I was like, you got electrical tape? I was like, do 3 wraps of that and you're fine. And he's like, I've never needed like rim strips on a charity ride. And I was like, well, you do today. Like, you need to figure something out. And so, yeah, that was like the craziest thing that, again, it was just like, she was just like, and I was proud of her. She's like, yeah, my boyfriend said he needed to come with me. I said, I got this. And I was like, yes, you do. And I was like, but you know what? Shame on anyone, or are you not taking it to a bike shop, like just to check it? I was like, but
Right.
I was like, good on you, girl. I was like, we got here, you made it this far, keep going. It's only like 3 miles to that level of finish or whatever she was wanting to do. And I said, you rocked it. You had the craziest story that I could ever imagine being. I don't know what I would do if I was like just getting into it and had no rim strips,
Right.
you know, but I was like, you asked for help, you got it. We're doing this together, you know, and we all rode together and got there. And like, that was a story I'm never going to forget, you know?
Right. Awesome. Another like one thing I've been doing since there is a shortage of bikes, I've been actually getting rid of bikes in our stable. And it's a good time to be a bike seller. So if you want to pare down your bike,
Yeah, I'm considering doing. Look at behind me right now.
I know. It's a gold mine right behind you, man. You could do YouTube full time, just sell half of the bikes.
Well, like it's not YouTube gold, it's Canadian gold. So that's like YouTube, like what, bronze?
It's bronze,
copper?
yeah. And the price of copper right now is just
Nice. All right, so I'm going to take it home here. What have we learned? We've learned that Kinderkoppen is the Dutch word for cobblestones and means children's head.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
If you need to fix your bike, all you need is a folding chair.
Yep, all steel's the same.
Yeah, all steel's the same, baby.
Nice. Well, on that note, thanks again for joining us. If you guys like this video, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. It helps the channel out. And again, I'm going to assume that you've subscribed because you're watching it here, but tell your friends. Maybe they're still trying to watch it on PLP or wherever else. Tell them to come here. I did a search on YouTube and Alternative Cycling Network does come up.
All one word?
Okay, finally.
No, with spaces even. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Coming around then.
Yeah. I mean, there's that other channel, I don't know, something Cycling Network also, but yeah.
Rip off.
Yeah. So that
I like the all steel's the same should be a perfect t-shirt. Yeah, that's just like it's just us with hammers, and then Eric with his welder. It'd be and then like Russ with a folding chair like above his head. Like it'd be great. Just all three of us. Like
the shirt design. We need a
also,
bike and a folding chair welded to the back of it.
But also if anybody's still watching at this point, if you are in or can make any kind of pop punk or punk rock theme song for this channel, we would greatly appreciate it.
Sure.
Because we need an intro theme song.
Nice. All right. With all that, see you guys next week, and thanks for joining us. All right. Good night.
Bye.